Welcome back. Chapter 9, Part 2. So in the last video, we talked about what causes relationships to come together and what causes relationships to break up. So now we're going to talk about the other, and I like this part better. Not that the other parts aren't real and we don't need to know them, but how do we make a relationship last? If we found a really good partner, or we think that we did, what do we need to do so that we can make it a healthy relationship? And so one of the things is to take plenty of time to get to know our partner. Really, before we make these forever commitments and get our heart broken, we take the time to get to know them. Dating, courting, spending time together, doing things together. The second is to emphasize the positive qualities of your partner in the relationship and not the negatives. That's the reality. We all have positives we bring to the table, and we all have negatives. And it doesn't say that we don't address the negatives or we don't look at them, but we really want to highlight the positives. We all like to hear good stuff about ourselves. We don't want to be in a relationship where somebody's repeatedly telling us about all the bad stuff that we bring forward, and we all bring something. So our focus should be on the good stuff. And that's in any relationship, whether that be a friendship or with our children as well. We want to focus on what they do well. It doesn't mean we ignore the bad. It just means our focus should be on helping people feel good about who they are. The third is to find ways to bring novelty to a long-term relationship. So we're keeping that relationship interesting. We're keeping the relationship exciting. So it could just be things. Let's go to a different restaurant. Let's watch a different type of movie. Let's eat on the porch instead of in the kitchen. There's just so many little things that we can do in our relationship that keeps it interesting, as opposed to it being exactly the same all the time, where we become bored with our lives. When we become bored with our lives, we become bored with our relationships. So, it reminds me of the Pina Colada song, although, he's looking for an affair and all this stuff, he finds it in his same partner. So, what are some of the things you used to do that you used to enjoy that maybe you've gotten away from? Maybe you should do those again, or new experiences. The fourth one is to develop effective communication and conflict resolution skills. If you don't come to the table with those, if you weren't raised with them, or they weren't something that you developed as you came up to being in that person in that relationship, counseling can help here, both the individual and the partner as well. So as you have different communication styles, and there's a lot of really good self-help stuff out there on communication styles and understanding a partner. But counseling can help here as we look at those different styles and how do we help them work together. Just because we communicate differently doesn't mean the relationship can't last. It means we have to find a way to communicate with that person effectively. The chapter will go on and talk a little bit about internet relationships. There's a lot of people who tend to be really leery about these. Certainly that's understandable because they've not met that person. What the internet really does is it broadens our proximity. So as opposed to the people I run into every day because I go to the same stores or in the same block and that kind of thing, it broadens that scope a little bit for us. In reality, the relationship success rate is not any lower for internet relationships than it is for other relationships. Once you meet, it's, the same old process takes place. So you're just as likely to develop a relationship even if you've met the person online initially. However, you do need to be very wary that that person is being truthful and honest and representing themselves. So whether they're online or whether they're in person, if they're not who they say they are, then we're not going to have a good relationship with them because we don't even know who they are. Moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about loneliness. And loneliness is really important, and this course doesn't go too much into it, but it is a very important aspect that we understand for this and for future classes, that loneliness leads to things like depression and suicidal thoughts and ideation, and can be huge. It can be really, really profound. Loneliness can be devastating for people. And so when we talk about loneliness, we're talking about different areas of loneliness too, because we all get lonely from time to time, and there is a resiliency that goes through that. But we want to look at the type of loneliness in some ways that we can try to resolve that loneliness so we don't have to stay stuck in it, because it can be really, really miserable. And so loneliness means a person who has fewer interpersonal relationships than desired or unsatisfying relationships. They're not getting their needs met from those relationships. Emotional loneliness, they have no intimate attachment figure, so whether that be a parent, a partner, there's nobody that I feel close to, there's nobody that I feel a sense of security with. A second type of loneliness is transient loneliness. This is less concerning. It's still distressful for sure, but this tends to be transient and sporadic. So something happened that created this loneliness. So my partner is not available to me right now because they're traveling. My partner is not available to me right now, or my friends are busy. So this is a loneliness for a period of time, but we don't feel it in our core. Transitional loneliness, it basically means that we're going through a transition phase, and that's creating that loneliness, but we've been in healthy places before where we weren't lonely, and hopefully we'll go back to those places. So this can happen during a divorce. It could happen during a move. So we went from an area where I had people I hung out with all the times, and now my world looks a little bit different. It can also be things when people are struggling, and again, there's a different course on substance abuse and things like that, but maybe we got our social needs met by being at the bar every week, and then when we have to leave the bar and we haven't developed something to replace it, we feel lonely. So we're driven back, not just because of the alcohol, but because of the friendships that came from there. So the same thing can happen with people who are eating. Like if they're trying to eat less, maybe they always went out to eat with their friends. So if they don't replace it with a different activity, they feel really lonely. So I'm skinny, but I have no friends. Or I'm overweight, but at least I have friends. So there should be a place in between, and it's sometimes difficult to find if we haven't been practiced in doing that. Chronic loneliness, the person feels isolated and often doesn't seek new relationships because they're just feeling very defeated in that. What causes loneliness? How does that occur in our lives? One is shyness. We're afraid to approach other people. We don't feel comfortable in that. Closely related to that is poor social skills. So I'm already shy, and I don't have the social skills to initiate those relationships. So I'm kind of standing back and hanging back and not being willing to put myself in settings where I'm going to meet new people. And the third is a self-defeating attitude. Why would I bother? Nobody wants me anyhow. Nobody cares about me. Nobody likes me. I'm not interesting. I'm not important. I'm not valuable. So if you come to the table with that attitude, then that's exactly what happens. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So how do we deal with it? What do we do if we are faced with this chronic loneliness? One of the things is to use the internet. Sometimes it's easier to approach people that way if we're really shy or we don't have the social skills. It makes that initial meeting a little bit easier, whether that be a friendship, a common interest group, whatever, and then develop from there. So now this person's expecting me to meet them to play chess or whatever. So it just makes that first initial meeting a little bit easier. And those are good as long as they don't replace other types of relationships. So they would be a tool, but they should not be the only tool that we put ourselves in a cave and only talk to people online. The second is to resist the temptation to withdraw from social settings. So when we are invited out to things or we have an opportunity to go, we need to take that opportunity. Even if we're uncomfortable, we need to push ourselves a little bit. So there's a party after work and I don't really know anybody, I'm a little bit uncomfortable, so maybe you don't have to stay all day, but you do need to go. Again, that proximity comes place. So people see you, people recognize you, people smile, and then they see you later and they go, hey, I saw you the other day. So we've got to force ourselves to go out even when we don't want to go out. And that becomes even a bigger challenge I see in society today when we don't even have to go out to the grocery store. Somebody will deliver our groceries. Somebody will deliver all of our stuff to our house. We can come home and crawl in a cave and not even come out. So we have to force ourselves to get out and take those invitations. And even if we're uncomfortable, at least show up for a while. If it starts to be overwhelming, come back and do it again until we get through that. The third is to get out of the self-defeating attitude that you're not lovable, that you're not valuable, that you're not worthwhile. That is ridiculous. Everybody has value. Everybody has something to offer. You might need to find the right friends that appreciate you, but we all have value. We are all important, and that's important that we get that out of our head. Those are messages we put in our own head, and we have the power to remove them. Develop and grow your social skills. Different activity groups. Join a club, join a group, join a gym, join a biking group, join a Tiddlywinks or chess group, whatever it is that you like, a book club. Sign something you enjoy and show up. Show up, check it out. If you're not sure about the book club, show up at the library and kind of hang around the background and see what they do. See if anybody bites. See if they bring alligators. If they don't, then you can ease yourself into it. But do something. It's really important because loneliness, again, can be overwhelming. And the longer we stay stuck in it, the harder it is to get out. If you have a friend or somebody that can help you along, or maybe you know somebody who's really lonely, take a moment, reach out to them, invite them along, because they frequently won't go unless they're invited. So hopefully you learned some really great stuff that was helpful. I look forward to seeing you back very, very soon for Chapter 10. See you in a minute.